Hello everyone, and let's talk about how to ensure junior staff are successful in hybrid work models through mentoring. Now, you see a lot of companies, including tech giants, bringing employees back to the office for mentoring. For example, consider Salesforce, where Mark Benioff said that new hires do well in the office through networking and training, and thus the company reversed its flexible work policy to bring employees back to the office for 3 days per week. Everyone. However, evidence shows that such policies are misguided. When RTO mandates, return to office mandates, are announced to support the development of junior staff for mentoring, they risk that senior staff are resentful over having to come to the office just to mentor junior staff by osmosis when they happen to bump into them. And so much better approaches exist to support these new hires while avoiding these pitfalls. Unfortunately, leaders tend to buy into the osmosis strategy that they experience themselves, that they were bumped into when they were junior staff, and they learned through osmosis prior to the pandemic. But the pandemic really changed everything. It showed senior staff that they can be highly productive remotely, and thus many of them oppose going back to the office just for the sake of mentoring junior staff. So I conducted focus groups at 23 companies that found that when senior staff are forced back to the office in order to provide mentoring to junior staff, like at Salesforce and elsewhere, when leaders announce this, hey, we're going back to the office because junior staff need more mentoring, senior staff really resent that. They're really upset. And so they tend to have a reactance, a backlash. They tend to avoid interacting with junior staff. They resent being forced to come to the office for that purpose. That really undermines any benefits from the osmosis effect. So there was a regional insurance firm that I ended up worked with that forced senior staff back to the office, which caused senior staff to feel really resentful about losing flexibility in their work. They became less available to mentor junior colleagues, and junior colleagues struggled in their roles, and the company productivity and employee morale took a hit, which is when they brought me in and I helped implement a hybrid mentoring policy, which I'll talk about later. But that's an example of what happened, a real life story of a regional insurance company. So there's a mismatch in mentoring. When forced back to the office, another problem is that only proactive and socially adept juniors get mentored. What happens? Senior people go to the office, they're really feeling blah about it, they're upset, they're frustrated, they're resentful. And it's typically people who get mentored already tend to be more proactive and socially adept. But now the bar is raised even higher. The junior people have to really jump through hoops to get good mentoring. So employees who lack social skills miss out on mentoring, and many junior employees who especially started their work during the pandemic, they lack social skills. And strong social skills are not necessarily indicative of good competence in their work, technical skills. So let's talk about a SaaS startup where I saw this mentoring imbalance. Staff with strong interpersonal skills, they were the ones who were successful at gaining the attention of senior staff and secured mentoring. Whereas staff with strong technical skills, great programmers, but not really good socially, they tended to face more difficulties with getting mentoring. And this led to a skills gap, which hampered organizational performance. The path forward at both the regional firm, insurance firm, and the SaaS startup and other companies I worked with is a hybrid mentoring program, which combines in-person and virtual mentoring elements to create the best of both worlds. You don't force an office return and hope for mentoring by osmosis. So what you see is that senior staff, they do realize the value of in-person mentoring. They just resent being forced back to the office just for the sake of hopefully getting some osmosis going. They know that it was beneficial for them earlier in their careers, for senior staff. And so that is something to really think about. How do you get senior staff in the office to do mentoring and remote mentoring as well, because that's doable, without having them be so resentful? And when especially people are in the office, junior staff, having a clear mentoring program helps ensure that the junior staff who have lower social aptitude can still get mentoring. They're less proactive, lower social attitude, but they're still very technically competent. and they get mentoring through a hybrid mentoring program. And they can ask questions, they can get mentoring for activities and topics and problems that they wouldn't be comfortable asking for and doing themselves without mentoring. So what do you do in this program? You want to realize that a hybrid mentoring program doesn't require a set number of in-office days. It aims to have people come in for specific tasks, so task-based approach. It gives senior staff a clear purpose to be there. So this approach encourages much greater buy-in for mentoring and prevents resentment from arbitrary mandates that hope for mentoring by random osmosis. It helps avoid resistance, attrition, disengagement, and morale issues from return to office mandates. So that's a win-win approach. When senior staff are asked to come in specifically for mentoring, not hoped for mentoring by osmosis, but activities that are actually mentoring when you're in the office, they feel valued for their expertise. And they overall spend much less time than, let's say, the Salesforce Mark Benioff's 3-day in the office mandate. It's a win-win-win for all involved. Company leaders get mentoring for junior staff. Senior leaders get a lot of flexibility. Senior staff, get a lot of flexibility. And junior staff get access to high-quality mentors who are excited to be there instead of resentful, and junior staff have to go jump through hoops to get mentoring by osmosis. So what you do? What do you do in these sorts of sessions, sorts of activities for hybrid work mentoring? Well, one type of activity is individual lunch sessions. And the nice thing is the senior staff person doesn't even have to come to the office. They can just go out for lunch with a junior staff member. That provides a quality one-on-one mentoring time with senior staff. A virtual coffee meeting is another option. It's less time intensive, although less engaging and less relationship building, it's less time intensive. So I recommend that junior staff start with individual lunch session activities, a couple of lunch sessions where they develop relationships with senior staff as mentors, and then they can move on to more virtual coffee meetings with their mentors. That's what enables accessible mentoring. Then a group lunch session is another really good approach, where senior employees can mentor multiple junior staff, which facilitates efficient knowledge sharing, so from one to many, and relationship building, again from one to many. Also, there's that peer cohort effect where the junior staff end up mentoring each other. When you learn something, you pass it on to each other. So you develop relationships not only with senior staff, but with each other in the mentoring group. And that really helps build a very nice cohort effect. So for group mentoring, what you want to think about is senior employees mentoring a cohort of juniors. And you can have in-person co-working sessions where senior and junior staff collaborate in a shared office space inside the office. So you can have one senior person and 5 junior people sitting close to each other in a hoteling setup and co-working, and whenever a junior person has a question, they can ask a question, the senior staff person can explain, and everyone there gets to hear the explanation instead of each individual junior person having to ask the question of individual senior people and having that explanation like multiplied 5 times, right? Because everyone hears it. Also, sometimes junior people answer each other's questions, and that saves the time of the senior person and helps them mentor each other. That's really great. So that's a really good technique. And also, a senior person, staff person, can sometimes, when they're there during the co-working session, they can decide that, hey, something should be explained that I'm doing, and they can show junior people, if they're doing, let's say, a client brief or something, or some programming, they can show it to the junior people. So the junior people can ask questions, and senior people can also do check-ins. So they can check in on what junior people are doing and provide guidance and feedback on whatever junior people are doing during that individual co-working session. But you don't have to do it inside the office. I recommend that you start with inside the office and establish a pattern of having at least a couple inside the office, but then you can move on to virtual co-working sessions, which is similar to in-person co-working, except it's conducted by video conference for flexibility. So everyone turns off their microphones, you leave your speakers on, your video is optional, and then again, you can have senior staff people doing check-ins on junior people asking questions, and you can have senior people responding or showing junior people something, and junior people can respond to each other as well. So those are really good techniques. Now, here are the key principles that you want to think about for a successful mentoring program. you want it to be goal-oriented. So really have goal-oriented mentoring. Establish clear goals for your program and incentives for the program. Align them with organizational values and objectives, whatever those happen to be, and have regular progress evaluations for your program. Gather feedback from mentors and mentees alike, and apply these insights from the feedback to improve the mentoring program. Provide training and support for mentors and mentees. Offer coaching for communication skills for effective mentorship for both folks. To fine-tune the mentoring program, you want to think about customizing it and making it flexible. Acknowledge the diverse needs of employees and tailor the various options of the program to suit individual preferences. For example, who's going to be mentoring who. Accountability and follow-up are crucial here, so you want to have clear expectations for both mentors and mentees alike. Track progress with regular check-ins and surveys, and ensure that commitments are being met over time, because what I definitely see is that if there's no accountability, there's no surveys, there's no check-ins, those mentoring relationships tend to dissipate. And you want to establish a clear 1-year commitment and have check-ins and surveys to make sure that the commitment is ongoing. So here are the key takeaways. The belief that mentoring happens via osmosis in the office is really outdated. It might have been true before the pandemic, but it's much, much less effective now. Mandating office return primarily for mentoring often backfires, with senior people really resenting it and not providing good mentoring for junior people. Instead, you want to embrace a hybrid mentoring program that caters to the needs of both senior staff and junior staff. It blends in-person and virtual interactions. That's what proves to be much more effective for a post-pandemic workplace. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And I hope you make sure to subscribe wherever you checked out the show and leave a review. It helps other people discover the show and helps us improve the show.